Hello, everyone. Well, it's very exciting to be having this event now. I know for many of you it is such a challenge. So, this seniors webinar has been in the works with my team, and we're really excited to bring it forward to you today. And I hope it will be helpful to so many of you. So, I'm Zali Steggall, the member for Warringah, and so you're joining us for our Seniors Forum. So whether you're seeking aged care for yourself or for your loved one, or you're a carer and a provider, thank you so much for tuning in to meet our expert guests as we discuss the complexities of navigating aged care, financial and health and wellbeing support for seniors. So today we'll be joined by Daniel Robertson from DR Care Solutions, Brendan Ryan from Later Life Advice, and Jennifer Britton from Square One Physiotherapy. And I'm really grateful for them for donating their time today. So the webinar will be recorded today, and a link to the recording will be emailed to all the registered participants, along with some useful resources by the end of the week. I'd like to start by paying my respects to traditional elders, past and present, and joining us from the lands on which they come today. Of course, unfortunately, here in Warringah, it's contested, but it's incredibly important to recognise that care and culturally the importance of providing culturally appropriate care to elder First Nations Australians as well. And to that effect, I would like to recognise the work of the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Ageing and Aged Care Council and their aims to improve access and support within aged care facilities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The council encourages culturally appropriate care, noting that there's likely to be long-standing institutional mistrust and trauma, and so it's really important to have that working well. I'd also like to acknowledge Jaren Bajent. She's a Wiradjuri woman living here in Warringah, and she is the CEO of a not-for-profit Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisation called Wayanga, which provides tailored, culturally appropriate aged care services. So really important as well. So today we'll be talking about the issues and obstacles facing our many in the community. So Warringah's population is ageing. Currently, about 15% of residents are over 65 years of age, and that percentage will rise. Sydney North Health Network is projecting that between 2016 and 2036, so not too far into the future, there will be an increase of 46.3% in the 65 plus age demographic. So incredibly important that these systems work and that we know how to use them. Aging and its challenges touches all of us in the community. Many people in Warringah are in aged care facilities or are supporting family members who are. So essential that we have a fit for purpose, compassionate and responsible aged care system that promotes grace, dignity and prosperity in our twilight and senior years. So we're here to talk about how do we overcome the challenges of a growing aged care system and ensure we provide the level of care that most Australians would expect in old age. So the government is in the process of legislating a new Aged Care Act, and it will respond to the Royal Commission and the issues facing older people, aged care providers, workers and the broader sector. So the review of the Act will put the rights and needs of older Australians at the centre of the aged care system, and it will replace the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission Act from 2018. And the new Act aims to improve the ways in which services are delivered to older people in their homes, in community settings, and improve residential aged care homes. Now, I won't go into all the details of what the government tells us it intends to do with that legislation, but please stay in touch touch with the office and we'll update you as that legislation comes to bear. Hopefully that new act will be legislated in Parliament this year, with a further amendment bill introduced to establish support at home program, and that's to start in 2025. So I'll be watching closely as this legislation comes before the Parliament, but I haven't actually seen a draft just yet, so I can't share anything there. In terms of ACAT information, so what we know, an assessment can take 2 to 6 weeks, usually 6 weeks, unfortunately. And after your assessment, your funding can take 1 to 12 months to be processed, depending on what level of urgency you're classified as. And we'll go into explaining some of this with our guests in a minute. For example, a level 1 is currently approximately a 1 month waiting time. Level 2, 3 to 6 months wait. Level 3, 9 to 12 months waiting time. So during your waiting time periods, it's up to the senior person to report if anything their condition changes. So no matter what level of care package you're assessed at, if there are no local providers with availability, it's up to the individual to organise private care services. So if you're in doubt, I'm going to start with this right now. Please contact our office or your side, which is the Northern Beaches Health Provider of the Service Care Finder, which is the government service for people over 65. And it's a free service. Your side can help you navigate My Aged Care and access to local services. But let's go to our expert panel. I'd like to start by introducing our first speaker, Danielle Robertson, the founder and CEO of DR Care Solutions. Danielle has worked in the aged care sector for more than 3 decades and has a comprehensive knowledge on how the sector works and how to obtain the best quality of care. Danielle's area of expertise include aged care, disability care, home care, retirement living, and family business. So thank you for being here, Danielle. Over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, and lovely to speak to you all today. And thanks again, Zali, for having me. Look, I have been in the sector, the home care sector, for nearly 38 years this year, which is a long time. And my passion is home care and trying to support people to remain at home for as long as possible with the right care and support in place. I focus very much on looking at the current informal supports that a family has, where they're up to in the government funded services, and we'll just touch on My Aged Care as well, and also seeing if we can work out if there's any cash flow from family or the individual to support having private fee-for-service in the meantime if you are waiting for government funded services. My Aged Care is the portal. It's a government portal that anyone over the age of 65 can register. It might be just for some domestic cleaning initially. It could be Meals on Wheels. It could be just for some extra companionship or respite for a carer, or transport. There's lots of different things, products and equipment, continence products and things like that. That's entry level, but that's to get you started. So if you are finding things a little bit difficult at home, register with My Aged Care and they'll guide you through the assessment process. And as Zali said, there are queues and delays for assessments and also for actual funding to be released. But what I always say to families is planning ahead is key. Rather than waiting for a life event, and that could be a fall, it could be, a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or other sort of dementia. It could be possibly a degenerative disease, cancer, heart attack, stroke, and that sort of thing. Before that all happens, and I'm not saying it won't happen, something is likely to change as you age in place, but having your ducks in a row, and that means getting your estate planning in order, and that's your will, your powers of attorney, your enduring guardianship, and even thinking about an advanced care directive. Those 4 documents are key as you're aging. Getting your financial advice and your financial affairs in order is really key as well, but also to start thinking about the sort of support and care care you want as you age in your own home. As I said, my passion is home care, and I try and keep people at home for as long as possible with the right care and support in place. There is government funded supports for people who are in desperate need. Carer Gateway is one of those portals that can assist you very quickly if you're an informal carer and you fall sick and your loved one needs care. There's lots of different supports and guidance. Dementia Australia and other places where you can get support and guidance is really key as well. But that planning ahead process is key. And also to speak with all your family about what your wants and wishes are, and make sure that everyone is across and transparent about what your wishes are. Because if you lose capacity or if something happens in a hurry, your loved ones can then step in and support you to get the outcome that you desire. But that's sort of there are a number of roadblocks for people who are trying to get into the My Aged Care system at the moment, and there is only one bucket of money, and I think that's a bit of a misconception that the consumers think that there is unlimited funds from the government to support older Australians. There is one bucket of money and they divvy it up. So as Zali said, there's 4 levels of home care. There's also that Commonwealth Home Support Services, which is entry level. The Commonwealth Home Support Program is not means tested, but the levels of home care and residential aged care are means tested. So that's where I say speak to Brendan and get your financial advice there, so that we make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row and you know what the steps are that you need to take for your aging care journey. If by chance something happens in an emergency and the person has been taken to hospital, there's lots of ways that we can support you to get the right outcome rather than having to be placed into residential aged care immediately. So we always, as I said, try and keep people at home with care and support in place.
All right. Wow, that's a lot of information from everyone. So I guess that my key takeaway, though, is the tip to everyone to be forward thinking, and as soon as you reach the age of 65, to register for Commonwealth Home Support to get into the system. Would that be about right?
That's correct. I mean, look, if you are well and very active, you don't have to register. I always say it's better to be registered and just have your name down and have an AC number. And an AC number, all that means is an aged care number. So it just means that you're in the system, and if you do need to act on it, or if anything changes in your life, you can act on that very quickly. Just ring My Aged Care. They're open from 8 till 8, 5 days a week, and 10 till 2 on a Saturday. So I always suggest that an adult child is with that older Australian, so that they can become the nominated representative at My Aged Care, so they can phone on the behalf of the older Australian if they can't.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll come back to more questions in a minute, but our next expert will help you with those next steps in planning all of this. So Brendan Ryan is the founder of Later Life Advice. Brendan has been working in financial services for 30 years, and he's an expert on the challenges for older Australians that they face when planning their retirement and navigating government systems set up to support them. So the move to full-time residential aged care requires broad knowledge of government rules and the client's unique situation, especially where we know some things are means tested, but not all. And so Brendan obviously is an expert in making sure that you make the right decisions are made. And this is something he's been doing for more than 20 years. So he's here to share some expertise. Brendan, over to you.
Thanks, Zali, for that wonderful introduction. And I'd just like to say, myself and my colleagues here today, we're all, I guess, what our main mission is to know the system very broadly. So when someone comes to us, we can just bring to them exactly what is relevant to their very specific situation. So it's about knowing what to do, knowing when to do it, and knowing what's important to your situation. And while we deal with people, planning to retire, getting to retirement, the actual point of needing residential aged care is really, I like to describe it in not in delicate terms, is it's like a collision of the complexity of the system with high emotion. And in no time is it more useful to simplify and to bring to people exactly what is relevant to their situation, so they can alleviate that financial complexity and that concern about making wrong decisions, so they can make the right decisions, and get that person in care at a very high stress time. So what I've been looking at the numbers for aged care for more than 20 years, and over that time there's been a bunch of rule changes, and it brings it to another really, I think, which is a really important point, is that sometimes in these conversations they can move towards how things were, or this is how they should be. But really what we're focused on is what is the situation right now. It can be a situation where a very steep learning curve is required to place a loved one in care, and everything else about how things could be or should be or whatever, it doesn't really matter. What are the rules now? What are the opportunities available? What are the pathways available? What can we do to get a decision that is the best decision that can be made with the circumstances present? And I think what I've seen over the 20 years, which has been really interesting, is that it's not only the kind of the number crunching to work out what are the opportunities, what are the pathways, what is the best financial decision, but the actual search for an aged care provider it's got really hard. So using the internet, going to the internet, for example, to try to find, an aged care provider that suits you, go to Google, you're going to get a lot of adjacent services promoted to you, you're going to get paid listings, all this kind of thing. So if I could break down the process into three distinct components, the first component is finding a location that suits. So for example, if dad's going into care and mum's going to be primarily visiting, wanting to be close, that could be the first iteration of a location. Or perhaps it's one remaining parent and children live a distance away, then the location parameters can change significantly. So like a clear-cut map or a clear way of finding where aged providers is located is the first step. And the second step, which is something that I think is really important, and of course Zali's very well aware, is the government has put in a lot of effort over the last 12 months or so to put forward an aged care quality rating system, which has an overall assessment of aged care providers and also breaks down all these other qualitative components of the delivery of residential aged care for families to make a quality assessment. And that data is really interesting. It's really well resourced. It's very comprehensive. And for example, there's a section for every aged care provider where you can look up different components of quality measures. For example, measuring pressure injuries or falls and major injury and all this sort of thing that's associated with residential aged care, which is really not. It's quite confronting in a way, but the government kind of provides a framework to help families kind of make these assessments. So this aged care quality rating is really important, and we've really taken a very close look at the data. For example, to help our clients track changes in quality measures for aged care providers where a loved one might be, or to make a broader assessment of aged care quality in the area. And then, of course, it gets to the point of how much aged care is going to cost. And if you've ever filled out a government form, you realise that they can be extremely lengthy and comprehensive, because a government form has to suit every person. In the income and assets test, for example, they're going to ask you if you've got taxi plates or cryptocurrency. So there's whole parts of this process that won't apply specifically to you and your situation. So having the help to cut out all the noise so you can get straight to the nub of the issue is what we love to do. So broadly speaking, myself and all of the experts in this forum today, it's about taking broad-based knowledge and bringing it to our clients to make things more simplified and to ensure they're making the best decisions and give them that confidence.
So And so thank you for that, Brendan. I mean, one of the things that we do get a lot of feedback has been that question around the quality of care. And obviously with the Royal Commission and some of the findings, people are incredibly concerned and weary of the system. And so having that, I guess, a heat map around where the quality institutions are. Some institutions, if I understand correctly what you were saying, are better at some aspects of care than others. For example, a measure that was recommended and introduced by the government was having RNs on call, so a registered nurse, to be able to provide a greater level of care to residents, and it alleviates pressure on emergency departments of hospitals. But not all facilities have been able to avail themselves of RNs, and so that impact is that. Can you give people just a bit of a nice sense of the ratings of residential care premises?
Yeah, that's a fantastic example of the kind of data that you can get when you are on the My Aged Care website and you're looking at a particular provider. There's a staffing tab, and within that staffing tab, it shows you that the target minutes for different types of registered nurse and other personnel that are involved in the care of the resident, and measures the performance against the minutes that they're supposed to provide, and it results in a rating. Now, look, this is all part of an overall process of assessment. Obviously, it also needs to be augmented by a visit and a tour, and of course Danielle's an expert on the delivery of care in this forum as well. And some respite care, of course, can be a great opportunity to get an understanding or a sense of whether this place is going to be suitable. And once again, not being a care expert myself, I'm kind of data driven, for better or for worse. I always encourage people to speak to all the personnel along the way as well, from the social workers to the doctors. Anyone that knows anything about your loved one and what's available in the area is going to help in that process. But yes, certainly the government data, I think, is a fantastic starting point.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll get onto that a bit more in a minute, but first I'll go to my third expert and panelist, which is actually so Jennifer Britton, who's APA gerontology physiotherapist from Square One Physiotherapy. So she has a special interest in health and welfare of older adults and is passionate about the importance of individualised approach to rehabilitation and the importance of exercise and to optimise physical and mental well-being. Now, I am a big advocate for use it or lose it. And so no matter your age, if you are not using muscle groups or your fitness, you will lose that as you age. And, I hassle my own parents on this front. They can vouch for me on that. But over to you, Jennifer.
Well, thank you, Zali. Yes, so Jennifer Britton is my name. I'm a physio at Square One in Mossman. Thanks so much for that lovely intro and for this opportunity to speak to everyone today. As Zali mentioned, I am passionate about exercise and particularly have a special interest in helping older adults stay active or become active. And I think of it as really optimizing the amount of life under the curve. So we talk a little bit or a lot about life expectancy and preventative healthcare and things like that. And I think that while that's important, I think it's also important to focus on the present day, to get the most out of today, and to feel as physically, mentally, and emotionally well as you can. And I do believe that exercise, physical activity, plays a big part in that. So that's my role. My role is to bring that to an older adult, particularly. And we at Square One and many physio practices have lots of different modes of delivery for that sort of care. So quite often older adults will visit the clinic and have a one-to-one assessment and therapeutic session that way. We offer lots of group activity group session for balance and strength training in the clinic, which is an excellent way of a bit of social engagement and having some fun with your activity. And then I spend quite a bit of time doing home visits, and that might be in a person's own home or in residential care or in an independent living section of a residential care facility. So we pretty well have all of those situations covered in terms of how an individual wants to incorporate activity into their life. I think what's important to note or to consider is that exercise or physical activity is an important part of staying healthy for every person. So all humans benefit from being active. But as we get older, the benefits become much more important and much weightier. So that, if you're looking at overcoming post-surgical rehabilitation, the sort of the fitter you are going into that surgery, the quicker you get back to what you want to do after the surgery. And same goes for an unexpected illness or event like a fall. And so I think that it's sometimes it's not just staying active, but as we get older, it's a really crucial part of looking after a person, regardless of their age or stage or where they're living or level of function. Unfortunately, it seems in the research that only about a third of older adults, and I'm referring to people over the age of 65, are meeting the basic World Health Organization guidelines of aerobic activity, and very few of those are also getting the resistance training minutes per week that are recommended. So I think that if I was to only pass along one message today, that would be that the single most important thing that you could start today as any adult, but particularly in older age, is some form of strength training or resistance training to build your muscle capacity. And then the other thing is, I think that we have a bit of a tendency as healthcare professionals and perhaps family members, and even as our own individuals, to dismiss the changes that happen as we get older as just a natural part of aging. And I really would like to champion the idea that maybe we stop accepting those changes as just a natural part of aging and really try to remediate them. So rather than, not able to lift that washing basket like I used to, I better stop doing it. No, perhaps maybe what I need to do is address the lack of strength or make it a bit easier so that I can continue doing those sorts of things. Yeah, and I think someone did say something about referred to the importance of it being things being tailored to that individual, and I believe that's especially true for therapy, for physio, for physical activity. And I think that for a lot of older adults, that's what an in-home assessment and treatment, particularly at the beginning of a new program, really stands to offer, is that it can be tailored exactly to the types of problems that a person might be having in their own home, or managing their particular stairs, or that particular transfer in and out of bed. Those sorts of things are much easier to address and much more efficiently addressed in the home. So I think that's an important part of our service.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that, Jennifer. I mean, it's one of those things, something as basic as being able to continually, I would say they're air squats, but for people, it's even the maintaining your mobility and independence by being able to get yourself in and out of chairs, right? Don't give up on that independence. Important to maintain that strength to continue to be able to do that. What are some, if you could summarize 3 top exercise tips for people to do in their home to maintain that independence, obviously subject to medical requirements, and don't want to put anyone at risk here. But what are your 3 most, common areas that get lost due to not enough use? The one I tend to think of is the getting up out of a chair, doing an air squat.
Yep. Absolutely. If there was only one, that would be the one. We call it sit to stand from a chair. It's basically stand up from a chair. It sounds simple. If you do it fast enough or enough times, it will become challenging for everybody. And there is no easier or more straightforward or better bang for your buck exercise that you could do. And definitely maintaining muscle strength and balance are I believe it's the most important thing that you can do to maintain independence and therefore quality of life. It's about being mobile. It's about keeping your confidence to be able to participate in the social activities that you enjoy, being able to get out of the house. Or just go downstairs. And so, yeah, progressive strength training, and it can start with something as simple as a sit to stand, is, I think, the most effective guard that we have against that decline in mobility. If I had to say three, I'd say that sit to stand that you've just described, maintaining your shoulder mobility, so reaching up overhead, I think is really important. It also, is exactly, it's a posture exercise, which is good for your breathing. And then the other thing that tends to, that people start to avoid and therefore stop being able to do, it's the use it or lose it idea, are stairs. And so, I think it's really key that everyone's able to continue going all the way up and down a flight of stairs. And so I would say those three things would be my top three. But as you said,
fantastic.
I think everyone could manage them, but they really do need to have an assessment to see where they're starting, and maybe that's the goal, or maybe they're starting there and they have a higher goal. That's an individual thing. But that's what I would say.
Yes. Well, look, I'm always an advocate for set big goals and challenge yourself. Now, I know Warringah community is incredibly fit compared to the national average, but nonetheless, I will definitely be encouraging everyone to be fit and putting some things out there. But I will go to Danielle. Assuming a few things have happened and people are having to engage with the system, getting down to the brass tacks. Danielle, can you explain My Aged Care exactly what it is? A lot of people still don't understand or don't know about it, and there's a lot of confusion about what is means tested and what isn't means tested. So let's start with My Aged Care.
Okay, well, My Aged Care is a government portal, and that's really all it is for government-funded support and care. And basically, you need to register there. Anyone over the age of 65 can. If you're under 65 and you do have a disability or an ailment that you need support with, you can actually register with the NDIS. So, it's not that you're going to miss out on that. And so My Aged Care, you register there. They will ask you a few basic questions about where you're at in your aging care journey. And they will then assess whether you need to be assessed by a regional assessment service, which is entry level, or whether you need to be assessed by an ACAT assessor. And ACAT, all that stands for is Aged Care Assessment Team or Aged Care Assessment Service in Victoria. And that basically means that you're in a queue to be assessed. There, as Zali mentioned earlier, that there are long queues for entry level and for ACAT assessments. Once you are assessed, it doesn't mean that you can access the services immediately. You need to be then waiting for your referral codes, and the government, if it was done by a regional assessment service, which is entry level for the Commonwealth Home Support Services, you get referral codes to different organisations for different services such as transport, Meals on Wheels, cleaning. It could be personal care, nursing care. As I mentioned these before, but that's your entry level. Anyone can access those services, but there are limited amounts of funds available for constituents or for consumers. So the government has one bucket of money, and you might contact a provider, and it might be a transport provider. You might have limited access to that transport. So they will let you know when they can support you. You can also say, I need someone on this time and this day to take me to an appointment, and they'll try and allocate somebody to you using your referral codes. It may be that you need to co-contribute to that. So it's not means tested. So it might cost you $6 for Meals on Wheels, for example, or $10 a meal, but it's highly subsidised by the government. So it just is really important that you understand and ask those questions of each provider that you speak with. Once you move into the home care package system, there's 4 levels, and that can be from 2 hours a week right up to 10 or 12 hours a week, depending on the level of care that you require or support you require. And that is, it's consumer-directed care, so you actually are in direction and control of what you want to spend your funds on. It does need currently to go through an approved aged care provider by the government, and they hold your funds. You can self-manage, and that's another whole area that you might need to investigate. It's a bit noisy there in the background, not mine. But any home care package that you're assessed and you're given funding for, that is means tested, and you need to contribute, or you need to complete forms to Centrelink or Services Australia, and they'll determine how much means tested care fee or means tested fees you need to pay. It is lifetime capped, and I'm sure Brendan will touch on that too, so that you know it's not never ending. But there are massive changes to the home care system coming up in July next year, we think. It's been pushed out for 2 years in a row now, and it's going to be called the Support at Home program, combining Commonwealth Home Support, the one assessment process instead of 2, 3, sometimes 4 assessments that currently take place, and that you'll be allocated certain services. If your condition changes, it'll be automatically increased. But once again, that will be means tested. So that's where we're up to with My Aged Care. But just get into the system early. Ring, as I mentioned, one tip I always say is ring about 6 p.m. at night, so that, basically that people can get onto them. Otherwise it's like an hour or sometimes 2 hours waiting on the phone. Or first thing in the morning, 8 a.m, get on the phone.
Okay, so good to be patient. And so can I just recap for that Commonwealth Home Support, for people that may not be familiar, that is that entry-level basic support, things like assistance with a cleaner once a fortnight or something, Meals on Wheels, so assistance with meals. What would you say are the 3 key kind of elements that get used in that Commonwealth Home Support area? And how much is that approximately?
Yeah, look, it varies from provider to provider and suburb to suburb. So, I won't touch on that. But basically, the top 3 services would be transport, cleaning, and sometimes care, or home modifications, where people are needing a rail down the front stairs, needing a bathroom remodified so that it's safe for somebody to be living at home. So it just, they would probably be the top 3. There's lots of statistics, but yeah, most people want cleaning as an entry level, or gardening, cleaning, gardening, and home maintenance, the equipment, and then transport.
Okay, thank you. So, well, Brendan, I think we might just go to what was referred to there around the lifetime cap. And so that process of selecting a residential care, and that, I guess, the financial, because once we get into the aged care plans, it's means tested. And so maybe you could explain the process of, the best approach to selecting, I guess, aged care facilities, and dealing with that lifetime cap. Could you explain that a little bit more?
So very broad question, very, very challenging to answer. However, I think if I could just lead with an example. I think we had one of the questions that might be asked is how much does residential aged care cost, which is a incredibly broad question. And if you were to have very low means and to be going into aged care, and the measurement, by the way, of low means is relatively complicated in itself. your cost of care could be as little as just the basic daily fee, which is about $60 a day, which is set at 85% of the pension. And I looked at one of the more high cost, when I say high cost, high aged care providers with a high refundable accommodation deposit in the Zali electorate. And if you did not pay the refundable accommodation deposit outright, you paid it by what they call daily accommodation payment. If you were assessed to pay the maximum means tested care fee and you have what's called an extra service fee, your cost could be more than $660 a day. So, 10 times the concessional rate. So it's incredibly diverse, the range of cost outcomes that people can have. And when I first started in this business of working with people to assess their costs, we used to have an initial meeting just to give a bit of an overview. And I guess people, it was just too many rabbit holes. People's eyes would glaze over. And what we'd like to do is to get the data and to say, okay, this is exactly what is relevant to your situation. Now, going back to the question of the means tested care fee, it in itself is a complicated fee. There's an annual cap of about 32,000, which is the maximum amount of means tested care fee you can pay. Having said that, you're assessed to be capped at lower levels if your means suggests that. And then there's this lifetime cap, and you can be contributing to your cost of this means tested care fee from the home care package stage all the way through to the residential aged care stage, and this broader cap applies. So if you're in aged care and you're assessed at a very high rate, you can get to a point where you're no longer paying this maximum rate. Once again, the point that I'd really like to put across is that I can go through the minutiae of all the different components of aged care costing, except it can probably just serve to confuse people. But it's certainly the case that the means testing means that you are obviously measured on your capacity to pay. Sometimes there are surprises where people think it's going to cost a lot more and they've got very low means and they get more support than they think. And look, realistically, the converse applies where people assume that the cost of care is going to be a lot less. One thing I will also say is that the people that work in the financial side of the game, the assessment machine's like a many-headed beast, and there's all these different levers, and there can be interest rates can affect one part of the story, which can have an impact. Costs of an area. It's really confusing. And to get back to that initial point, this is a collision of probably the most complicated assessment of government support for a government delivered or supported system at the same time as this incredibly emotional and challenging time. So alleviating that financial burden by solving what is significant complexity is absolutely important. But the key message is focus on what's relevant to you, and don't expect that. Just be careful making an assessment of the costs and ruling out potential outcomes for your loved one.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense.
So, I
kind of said nothing, Zali.
Lots more questions. No. So we have a senior Australian. They have registered for Commonwealth Home Support, but unfortunately there is a life event or there is a degradation of independence that occurs. That is a process, Danielle, where they have applied for an aged care plan of one, probably at the one level or two, and that is where that home care comes into it. Jennifer, so under home care plans, physiotherapy and assessing your ability in your home to maintain your independence. Can you talk through for people a little bit more that process of that sort of level 1, level 2 care plan where that independent assessment in your home becomes so important to stay out of that complexity, Brendan, when it comes to the residential care?
Yeah, thanks, Sally. So there are a few key parts of the assessment that basically revolve around your physical function and ability to complete what we call activities of daily living. And for example, those are things like getting in and out of bed, getting to the toilet, and tasks in the kitchen, things like that. And there are lots of modifications that can be made. Danielle referred to that being one of the bigger costs, one of the more common costs, I suppose. And I always feel that that is worthwhile pursuing. Anything that allows a person to stay within their familiar environment, maybe even with their pet, with their friends around, doing the things that they are familiar with is worthwhile investment. So it might be things like modifying a bathroom or a shower, or a walking aid, prescription, things like that. In terms of moving from one level to another, I can't speak to that exactly. The process is like a very slow moving train in my experience. So sometimes doesn't respond to changes, acute changes in a conditioned person's status, the way that we would like. But certainly planning ahead, and I believe staying at home with it, whatever you need to do to modify that environment is a worthwhile task. The other thing that I just wanted to say that an occupational therapist is the person that that would be best to describe the home modifications, and a physiotherapist would be the best person to describe the physical function in the home and with the activities of daily living. And one other thing that I didn't get to mention before that I would is, and this is all part of what are some of my top tips. And one of my top tips is seek help and modify where you need to in order to maintain your current function. Whatever you need to do that. And that might be getting an OT home assessment. It might be applying for a package. It might be taking advantage of the council transport so that you can continue attending a group socially or your GP. Or it might be as simple as getting your 75 plus health check at your GP, just to be really proactive in terms of what does my next 5 years look like and what should I be planning ahead for in my home. That's it.
Fantastic, thank you. Danielle, did you want to add to that a little bit around that process of going from an aged care 1, 2, 3 plan, the kind of level of maybe loss of ability or need that changes? Because unfortunately often for people, an event occurs that significantly diminishes their capacity, and so all of a sudden that change in circumstances needs an urgent need for a plan. And as Brendan said, we often don't, the system is not always as responsive as we would hope it can be.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, the assessment process, at the moment, we've got to have 3 or 4 assessments. If you're moving from Commonwealth Home Support through to each of the home care packages, that may require 1, 2, 3 or 4 assessments, which is time consuming, and then you just go back into the queue. But what I also say to families is that if you do have a home care package, don't stockpile the funding. Use it, because they won't actually look at you to move up a level unless, if you've got funding still there to use, they won't even look at you at moving to the next level, because they're saying, well, you're not using it now, so then you can't move to the next level. So I always say, whether it be bringing in allied health, such as what Jennifer was saying, the physio or podiatry or an occupational therapist. Use it for home modifications, for your mobility aids, for continence products, Meals on Wheels, but use the funding, because then you can, once you've used that funding, you can ring My Aged Care and say, look, I'm a level 2, but I've already gone through my funding and I need further support. So that's when you can move up to a level 3. They might put you in as a medium priority or a low priority, but if things escalate or if things change, you bring them back. back, or get your loved one to call them back and say it's escalated and we need more funding. So, you can get up to a level 4 home care package, and that's $59,000 a year, and it gives you about 10 to 12 hours of supportive services a week. It's not a huge amount, and that's where I say we need to work with the families to understand cash flow and working in with the financial advisors. Is there some additional cash to be able to support additional care services privately funded, or are we just reliant on the government funded services? So I hope that answers the question there, Zali.
It does. And obviously it's once you've reached that level 4 is the highest level of aged care packages. Now, I have had many people contact me around the discriminatory nature of the difference between aged care level 4 package and NDIS. So if someone has an accident over the age of 65, they are not entitled to NDIS support for a disability acquired. There is a significant difference. An NDIS package can be several $100,000 worth of home changes and, really adjusting for your disability and support and care. Like it can be 7-day-a-week, round-the-clock care, things like that. Yep. Unfortunately, and I am in discussions with the minister, both the aged care minister and the NDIS minister about this, over the age of 65, you only have access to the aged care level 4 plan, or you have to go into residential care, which can be incredibly challenging if you are a 65, 66, active 66-year-old entering into that, having to go into an aged care facility for round-the-clock care, very confronting. So, unfortunately, there is that. Maybe Danielle can talk about just that difference in plans, like the level 4 plan, as you said, where it caps out at. And so then maybe we can go to Brendan of that importance of the financial planning around this question.
Yeah, I was just going to say they're parallel systems, so they work very closely together, but the assessment process is different. And what happens with the NDIS, they assess the individual's care needs and their wants and wishes and their goals, and then they cost out and they fund particularly for that individual person. With My Aged Care, anyone over the age of 65, they're all bundled in together, just the different levels of funding. So level 1, 2, 3 and 4. It's just a level of funding. So on your need at a particular time. So there is a bit of disparity between the two systems. And I always say to people, if you're 63 or 64 and you've got a disability, get into the NDIS system. You can hold that through if you are over the age of 65. But if you're over 65 and trying to get into the NDIS, it's very, very hard. And I've worked with families, and I had a client who was 64, and he actually was trying to get into the aged care system. They don't like having younger people in residential aged care. Unfortunately, this gent needed to be in care given his care needs and comorbidities. So we had to work with the NDIS. He was rejected from the NDIS, so then My Aged Care had to take him. So it's a bit of a grey area between 64 and 66. But yeah, look, it's really important that you start the process as soon as you know that you need some support. And Brendan can talk to the financial piece around that, but it's differently managed as well. So it still needs to go through an approved provider, but it is a little bit different.
Thank you. Brendan, do you want to touch on that financial piece? Because I know it's dramatically different.
It is very different. And I focus on the residential aged care, and it just highlights the system complexity, all the different agencies that Danielle's across, which is just speaks so highly of having someone who has experience in all these different areas and putting it together. I'm a financial guy. I'm about the number crunching. I'm about families' assets, eligibility for the pension. For example, if they're moving into aged care and they're paying a refundable accommodation deposit and the whole system changes, what happens to the house and all this sort of thing. That's a whole different ball game here. But navigating care systems and getting specific care outcomes is definitely Danielle's wheelhouse, and she does it very well.
So, Brendan, what does happen if you are in residential care and you change your mind about the care home? What does happen?
Yeah, so look, it's really interesting when I speak to people and what kind of information they bring with them when they're just about to start on this residential aged care journey. And normally, as I said before, it's a very steep learning curve. But there's a portability of if you change your mind, if you want to go from one aged care provider to another, you do have access to your refundable accommodation deposit. It is, as the definition says, fully refundable. It can be taken out and moved to another aged care provider. Sometimes there's minor, timing issues and things like that to deal with. But I think it's just one of those points about the whole process is that you do have some mobility, you have choice, you can move around, and I think that's certainly worth knowing.
Thank you. I've got two last questions. I know I'm running out of time, but I wanted to cover them off. Danielle, can you explain a little bit more about Carer Gateway and the support it can provide during that interim period for people while they're waiting for assessments?
Yeah, the Carer Gateway is government funded, and it's a really good service for those who are informal carers, and say something happens to you as an informal carer and that you need to go into hospital or you need to go away or you just need a break. The Carer Gateway can provide a number of services. I've actually got a brochure right in front of me from them. There's coaching, and there's self-guided coaching and in-person coaching for carers. Counselling, and this is really key, that you can actually access counselling, in-person or phone counselling, emergency respite, and that would be just getting that person into care very quickly. So not the carer. The carer might be in hospital, but they might be caring for their loved one with dementia. The Carer Gateway can find a bed very, very quickly for a short period of time until you can work out what the next steps will be. So that emergency respite is key. Connect with others in similar situations, so peer support, I suppose you could call it, so carer groups, they can help you with that. Online skills courses as well. Say you have a loved one with a new diagnosis, they can support you with skills. Tailored support packages as well. So they're also open 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that is also just for the Carer Gateway services, but there is an emergency number 24 hours a day should you need it at 2 a.m. and things like that. And we've seen this time and time again where families might have one person who needs to go into hospital very quickly. They end up taking that person, their loved one, with them until they can sort out what's happening, because the AMBOs don't know that they can call on Carers Gateway. They just take their loved one with them, and they might come in as a companion and stay in the hospital with the person. But that's not the ideal situation. It's better to try and keep them either in their own home with carers support or finding residential aged care as quickly as you can for a short period of time. And I always say try before you buy with residential aged care. I know that homes don't like that, but I think it's really important from the older Australian and their family to make sure it is the right place and the right home for that loved one. And that, as Brendan said, it is transportable. So if you are there for a period of time and you're not happy there, you can actually find another home and they can transfer the refundable accommodation deposit over. And I've often helped clients who have been placed by a hospital just because they needed a bed, and then we've had to find the right home for that individual afterwards. So that's how that all can work as well. So I hope the Carer Gateway has sort of given people a little bit of an idea of what it is, and it's a free service to Australians and even younger carers. They really focus on younger carers. There's carers who are as young as 8 caring for their parents who have a disability. So it's supporting younger carers as well as older carers.
Yes, fantastic. Well, Jennifer, I'm going to give you that last question of let's stay active as long as possible.
Yes.
So, and obviously we do have dementia more and more in our community as people are aging. Maybe you could touch on the physical effects of dementia, but then ultimately the top tips for health and wellbeing for seniors.
Okay, so dementia is quite interesting. It's obviously something that refers to changes cognitive changes, so losing your memory, difficulty problem solving, difficulty with language, but there seems to be quite a strong link between a decline in cognitive function and a decline in physical function. And there are lots of different types of dementia, but in general, the physical things that we see are a slowed walking speed, and difficulty just generally with mobility, and mainly a higher risk for falling and unfortunately fracturing or having a broken bone, which of course then feeds the process so that it speeds the cognitive decline itself as well. So it's a really difficult situation for both the person suffering with dementia and the carer. And so in my work, I have found, well, one, that physical activity, it can help alleviate some of the signs and symptoms of dementia. So changes in mood can be ameliorated with activity, and of course supporting physical function so that that person moves around easily really helps reduce the burden on the person caring for that person. One thing that I have found to be really helpful is that in a physiotherapy session, if a carer and the person suffering with dementia attend together, then it really helps with that carryover of the benefits of the activity, so that, just passing on tips and tricks on how to help that person move safely, confidently, and how to read what's happening. So I think that, and then the other thing, I just have to put another plug in for resistance training. That's using weights or body weight, is that it has been shown to improve the blood flow to your brain, and slow down the atrophy or the decreasing of the size of your brain, and help with cognition. So if we're looking at sort of the one best thing you can do for health in general, including staving off dementia, we're going to just say resistance train again. And then, so the quality of life, I think I'm going to have only time for one top tip. And I will say that we want to focus on thinking of people getting older, not weak, old, not weak. Keep the bar really high, and keep active, get a dog, do any of the sort of fun social things that you possibly can do to keep your brain and body engaged in a purposeful, meaningful life.
Fantastic. Well, look, we could talk for much, much longer, but I know there's only so much attention span. But thank you so much to our expert panel, Daniel, Jennifer, and Brendan. We will be able to provide a recording to everybody of this session, and answer as many questions as possible and pass on contact details if you'd like to get in touch. Of course, in relation to my aged care, please contact the electorate office. We can help when it comes to delays and waiting for plans and assessments. We do need your number. You do need to have that ACAT number to be able to get that assistance, but obviously that is what we're here for, to help and support. And in trying to do that, we've put together a comprehensive seniors guide, which we're launching now. We have some hard copies and an electronic version which we can send out to you. And we have endeavoured to put together access to all the different services. So from that very start of getting your number to how the pension might be assessed, what the means test means, what the payments for the different plans are. And so, look, we've done our best to put this together with the help of, and I have to do a shout out to my amazing volunteer team here in the office, in particular Jeanette, who has done an amazing job of putting this together. Please pop in and get a hard copy, or we can send out an electronic link. But I hope today's session has been useful. We will really look forward to your feedback, and please get in touch if we can be of more assistance. Thank you so much.